Hi guys, this video is really trying to address a situation where a lot of students find themselves in when they are writing their final MLA paper. So, you get to that point where you've written everything that you think you want to say about your topic, and you might realize that, you know what, this assignment is a couple of pages shorter than it's supposed to be, or it's 1 page shorter than it's supposed to be, and I need to expand on my idea so that I can meet a requirement, or even, if your paper is long enough but you want to find ways to continue to develop your idea. That's kind of the goal with this video. So the places where topic expansion comes from is really that brainstorming process. And I know that, when you've been talked to about brainstorming in the past, it's kind of one of those things that teachers say is really important, but they might not stress very much after talking about it. Maybe you've been asked to always do a brainstorm before assignments. And maybe you think, what's the point of doing this brainstorm, or why should I brainstorm? Well, really, if you have a situation where you don't have enough ideas for your topic, brainstorming is always the thing to go back to. And that comes in a number of ways. I mean, I've got these kind of identified in different categories, but honestly, it's all kind of part of that brainstorming pre-writing process. And I think that the writing process itself is really circular in nature. It's not just linear. It's not like you brainstorm in the beginning, you outline, you write your paper, you edit it, you turn it in. Sometimes when you're in the middle of writing, you might have to go back to the brainstorming table. So topic expansion comes from brainstorming. Write lists, free write, do a focused free write where you just write everything about your topic that comes to mind. You don't worry about is this making sense? Is there punctuation? Are my ideas flowing together logically? You just put down, it's almost like writing in a journal, just whatever comes to mind on your topic. And maybe you'll think of an idea that leads you to another idea, that leads you to a third idea that you didn't even know you really had until you started getting it out on paper. And something else that you can do is mind mapping, writing a topic down and having some offshoots from that topic of subtopics, and then going from there with each subtopic and having more subtopics for the subtopics, and just getting a big cluster of ideas and how they're connected if you want to see the connections between ideas as well. So go back to brainstorming if you are having trouble developing your idea or coming up with new topics to write about to fulfill a page length requirement. Another thing that you can do is have conversations with people who are interested in your topic, or with classmates or instructors, because sometimes people will give you ideas that you're like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea. There is always, with number 2 and number 4 here, conversations and research, there's always a fine line between someone inspiring an idea of yours in passing, or versus you like stealing someone's idea. If you're having conversations, that's not so much of a concern. More so it's the research section where, if you go and research someone else's ideas on exactly your topic, you run the risk of not actually coming up with your own fresh ideas, but just borrowing the ideas from others. So it's really important to be careful when you're looking outside of your own brain for ideas and things to write about. Something else you can do is outlining. When you outline what you already have, you might notice some gaps in your plan for writing. So that's always great as well. Maybe you've got 10 topics under a certain umbrella, and you have 2 topics under another umbrella, and you realize, oh, this section of my paper is really underdeveloped. How can I continue to develop this part of my paper further? Going back to research, research may inspire you to develop your topic, and I would just avoid, you might research an unrelated topic that has the same goals, so for example, with your paper, maybe you are looking at nursing and a particular movie or TV show that portrays nursing, but instead you research, agriculture and look at, the accuracies of movies or TV shows that depict agriculture, and maybe there is going to be something that's kind of like inspires you to consider nursing from the same perspective. So in that case, you don't really have to worry about plagiarism or plagiarizing ideas, more so you're getting inspiration. Of course, your paper will not be successful if you don't engage with your primary source. Don't work from memory. If you watched your movie or your TV show years ago, or even just over the summer, or even the first week of class, and you haven't come back to that primary source, go back to your primary source. There is going to be something that you didn't think of the first time. There's always something that you didn't think of the first time. So don't work from memory. If you don't have access to your primary source anymore, find some small clips on YouTube. Most stuff has even at least a preview. So try to get access to it in some way. If you have to look up the screenplay, that's fine as well. When we're talking specifically about the MLA paper, when we're thinking about expanding our topics, sometimes you might do that expansion from the perspective of focusing on your primary source. So like I just said, rewatch your movie or TV show, dig further into that primary source. Maybe go ahead and outline what you already have first and see if there's anything in the primary source that you don't have in your outline. Every time the scene changes, especially if you're watching like a short episode, if the scene changes, remember to remind yourself that, okay, this is a new section. Maybe there's something new to analyze here. You should always ask yourself in every scene, is there something in this scene that you could analyze for your paper? And it can be big things and small things. And next week we're going to talk about, how you can take a 3-minute scene and write an entire paper on just that, because you can notice just the tiniest detail, and that can lead you to 2 paragraphs. Another thing that you can do with your primary source is predict. Before you go back and watch it again, what do you expect that your movie or your TV show is going to show you about the profession? Does it? Analyze that. If it's missing something you expected, you can absolutely discuss that in your paper. Let's say there's a high action movie depicting a job, but the reality of that job is mostly there's just a lot of paperwork, but in the movie it never ever ever shows paperwork. You could spend a paragraph. Of course there's not a scene suggestion there for you, unless you're just going to say, this movie suggests that it's high action all the time. We see explosions, we see car chases, we see gunfights or whatever, but we never see the paperwork. And then you could talk about like the parts that are missing as well. So sometimes doing a prediction of what you expect to find can help you in that regard. The other way that you can kind of take a perspective to expand your topic is to focus on the profession instead. So really, this is asking yourself, do you see any of these aspects in the movie or the TV show? And then, do you have something to say about their accuracy? So daily job duties, what do you expect to see? Is the show giving you what your expectations are, or is it something different? Paperwork, we talked about that. What about relationships? Sometimes they're just professional work-based relationships, boss, employee. Sometimes people at work form romantic relationships. Sometimes they form friendships. Is that accurate? Does that actually happen in this profession? Do you have access to coworkers? Do you have the time in the job to build those types of relationships? What about the environment or the setting? What does the office look like? If there's no office, where does the person spend most of their time doing their job? Are they a truck driver? Do they spend most of their time in a vehicle, on a plane, whatever? Is it set up correctly? Does it look like it's supposed to? What about their dress code? What are they wearing? Does that match what the dress code is for the profession? What about conversations? What do they talk about when they're at work? Do they talk about their personal life? Do they talk about work? What would you expect to see? What's accurate? What about the emotional effects of the job? Some jobs have high emotional effects and others are just kind of like your run-of-the-mill stress that comes with work. Is it accurate? What about physical demands and the effects of those physical demands of the job? Is there something there that you could consider? So when you guys if you get to a point where you're like, you know what, I have come up with all the ideas I think I've written about everything, I don't know what else to say, but maybe your assignment is shorter than it's supposed to be, come back to this, think about new ideas, do some more brainstorming. What else can you include to continue to expand that topic? And this process, of course, is going to be different. The topic will be different for every paper, but this process is the process that you should always take. Go back to the research, go back to your primary source, keep brainstorming if you get to a point where you feel stuck. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know.